You're gonna have to excuse the poor camera quality and all of that jazz because, well, I wasn't prepared to make a type of video like this. Wasn't even close to being prepared for this. So let's all get comfortable for part one of a story that I wrote for fun ages ago, so don't expect it to be any good. I want to apologize for the camera quality, the audio quality, the quality of the story, and the quality of my voice. Camera quality is accounted to me just using my work laptop's camera, because I don't have another camera to attach to it that is any nicer. What was the second thing I said? Audio quality. It's all on the left side for some reason. My mic does that. I always fix it when I'm making music, but I don't know how to fix it when I'm using it for recording videos. So I apologize for that. I apologize for the story quality. I'm not a professional writer. I made the story for fun like 6 months ago, and I want to apologize for my voice quality because I'm sick or recovering from sickness, so I've been low energy for a couple days. So probably not the best start to a little reading series, but you know, gotta start somewhere. So enjoy. Every morning when I wake up, I go for a walk in the woods behind my house. Although it seems like it's a stupid thing to do every morning, I always have many reasons to go to the woods behind my house. I always want to check on the old pine tree that sits alone in the only break in the canopy of trees. I watched that tree over the years since I moved back here, and I watched it every morning when I woke up. Over the years, the tree itself never changed. It looked the same on the day I moved away from my home that it does now. It seems that the only thing that aged was the old man who lives beyond the tree, back before I moved away. I always used to go to the old man's house because he was the only friend I had back then. I would go and talk and listen to his stories and his wisdom, but I always felt better listening to his stories after a hard day. He would often pay me in his stories when I did chores to help him out. I was smarter and stronger than the old man, so I'd often help him in exchange for his stories. He was always happy to tell me the stories, because he had no one else to tell. One day, after school, on my way to the old man's house, I met a kid my age, crying outside what I assumed was his house. He was alone, and I had never seen him before. When I approached him, I remember clearly feeling the superiority, that childlike ego that I held on so dear, that I was somehow better than him because he was crying and I was not. "Why are you crying here?" "Because none of my friends are here," he said. "Why are none of your friends here?" "Because they're back home at my old home." "Well, if I left my home, I'm sure my friend would come with me." "No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to." "Why not? I'm his best friend." "Because their home isn't here." "Well, I'm smarter, so I would figure out how." "No, you aren't." "Yes, I am. I'm stronger, too. My friend would come with me." "No, you aren't." "Yes, I am. I do all the work at my friend's house." "That doesn't mean you're better than me," he blurted out, clearly mad at my words, although I can see it now. I couldn't see it back then. How angry I was making him with how hard he was taking my words. I almost immediately, after those words left his mouth, he shoved me to the ground. I don't entirely remember the fight, because it all happened too quickly. After we were done fighting, we were tired, and together we walked back to my house. My mother made sure we were comfortable. I remember her shock when I brought a friend home for the first time. My mother's one of the strongest people I had known. She raised me as a kid even though I listened to no one. She gave us ice for our bruises, and neither me nor the kid told her what happened. I remember the tired gaze she gave us. She had seen right through our omission. She knew what had happened, but she didn't scold us. She just kept helping us until we felt just a little better. A couple months later, we were good friends. We both often helped the old man and listened to his stories and wisdom. Both of us were kids, innocent in nature and dreaming for things we wanted. We both spent most of our time at my house, or the old man's home. And when we were able to stay away from his house, we would, although I was always willing to do what I wanted. He was more reserved and innocent to the idea of breaking rules, but his house had many rules that we had to follow. We had never hung out at his house until one day I didn't see him anywhere. I went to his house to check on him, but found no sign of him outside. I remember clearly walking up to the front door and knocking, being greeted face to face by his father, who looked gruff. He looked as abrasive as sandpaper, and he stared me down. He asked me who I was. I was scared how he looked, but still stood strong enough to ask for my friend. "He hasn't been home. But if you find him, tell him to come home. He's in big trouble." He shut the door in my face, which was good for me because his presence was starting to scare me shitless. I went to the old man's house, upset from losing my friend, and on the way I spotted the old oak tree. The old man was sitting at the base of the tree, while my friend sat in the tree. I got, admittedly, a bit jealous seeing them without me. I stormed over and childishly demanded that my friend went home. The old man tried to calm my temper, but I ignored him. I brought my friend home, and on the way, my anger turned to confidence, telling my friend that he won't be in too much trouble and that he shouldn't be scared. "But I am scared. It's always scary when he's mad." "But you don't need to be afraid. I'm here with you." My words were quickly turned against me. When we got closer to his house, I was now the one scared because I started remembering how afraid I was. With my friend now comforting me, we pushed on until we reached the outside of his house. Once we got to the front door, and I knocked, his father stumbled out the door as if he was between consciousness and sleep. Once he saw his son, he quickly grabbed my friend and brought him inside, slammed the door again. The next morning on my walk to school, I saw the local sheriff outside my friend's house. Where my friend normally waited for me, the old man was talking to the cops. He quickly noticed me and came to pull me away from the scene. I hadn't pieced together what happened until later that day, when the old man told me why I should try to stay away from my friend's house. I figured it all out when I heard the old man's comforting words, that I had just lost my only other friend than him. The old man and my mother both tried to help me grieve, but in the end my mother had decided that moving out of our little town to forget was the best option. Now, years later, I've moved back to my old house after my mother's passing, trying to bring back the memories I lost. My memories were lying to me in some ways, and I remembered things differently than what the old man said. He told me a familiar story, the exact one I told you. I came back to the town to remember my past and remember my friend. And ever since that day, I never had a friend as good as he was. I remember having the old man's house become my second home, with him helping me deal with my grief throughout figuring out what happened and coming close to death. I remember selfishly wanting my friend back, but there was nothing I could do. My mother moved to try to save my young mind from being reminded, but that just made the distance to his memory more painful. Once I was back in my hometown, my very first journey was to visit the old man's house. It was not as well taken care of as I remember, but I was happy to see that he was still there after all this time. He was extremely happy to see me, and his joy was contagious. We chatted about our lives after we last saw each other and reminisced on the past. We both knew I came to get closure over my friend's death, and even with that dark fact looming over us, the old man never stopped being happy to see me. Till the day he died, when I stopped by after work. In the morning, he was still happy to see me. I remember asking around the town to see if anyone remembered my friend or his family, but no one ever knew their names. I spent so long remembering the past and deluding myself with ways to make it seem like it wasn't my fault. How I wasn't the one that dragged him home that night. I spent so long being stuck on what happened that when I saw the old man and the pine tree sitting in the woods, I realized that through everything that happened, that tree saw. It saw everything and still grew. The cuts and scratches left scars on its trunk and the bark, but it still kept growing and standing. That old pine tree was my self-realized symbol, that I should learn to move on, and so I did. I stopped forcing myself to remember, and I would still always hold my old friend in my heart. But I decided to keep living, so every morning when I wake up, I go for a walk in the woods behind my house. On that walk, I always see that big old pine tree growing, and I always remember my friend sitting up in that tree. That sight, that precious memory, kept me going most days, and made me have a slight smile on my face for many more. But today, on my morning walk to the old man's house, on my way to say goodbye to his memory, the tree was laying in my path. And if it had been uprooted by its own weight in old age, I didn't know. But I realized that the memory of my friend and the memory of the old man would always be a part of me. And it won't kill me to hold on to the memory and keep the love I hold for them alive. Keep that love living longer than the old tree in the woods. I turned away from the tree and went to go to the old man's funeral. I knew he didn't want a big funeral, so it was small. Just me and some of his distant family. I said my goodbyes to him while he laid softly in his casket. And I knew that even though I was saying goodbye, I would still remember him till the day it was my turn to die. And I'll always remember everything until I collapse. Just like that old pine tree in the woods behind my house. Alright, that was really long, I apologize, but someone asked for me to read shit. And I read. Anyways, see ya. Musca out.